Great to have you on board, Paul.
Thanks to be here.
We've been going through this thing in the world where we thought the PC was everything, and it was. And then we thought, the phone was pretty interesting, but it wasn't very interesting. Suddenly it seems like the phone is it. IT, it's it the platform, it's where all the stuff's happening, it's where all the money's being spent. It's where it seems like there's an awful lot going on there. So the first question I want to ask you is, and we'll probably try this 3 different ways, but when you know about this stuff, by the way, this fellow is a tech guy who's done almost every part of the technology in the phone as well as now managing the company. So when you look forward at that little thing, whatever you want to call it, say 5 years from now, what's in that thing that isn't in it today, and what do we do with it?
It's going to be every kind of radio you can imagine. It's going to be personal area radios out to wide area radios. It's going to be 3D game capabilities. It's going to be location-based capabilities. It's going to have biometrics, authentication. You're going to be doing your financial transactions with it. Okay, maybe 5 years. I'm not positive whether consumers are going to adopt all of these technologies within 5 years, but the capabilities will be there. And I know Saul was just talking about how it all needs to be made simple for people. So we got to get the user interface there to make all this stuff work. But really, when you have the kind of capability in the phone, we're going to be able to make it magic. We'll make it seamless to people. Today, there's a lot of pain associated with things.
Right. Well, let's address that right now, because Saul's point's a pretty good one. This whole Swiss Army knife approach to whatever device you want to talk about is, whether it's a remote control in your TV room or whether it's a Palm Pilot, it doesn't work, and we know that. We all kind of have our own hate stories. So how do you do that? How do you take this Swiss Army thing and make it feel like it's really just the perfect carving knife?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did was we built this capability to adjust the user interface, to download new user interfaces to the phone. So when the phone was just for voice and SMS, kind of commoditized services, one user interface fit all. But if I'm a business person, I want email and I want my contacts, I want some sales interface or something like that, I want a different user interface, fewer button clicks to get to those things than if I'm a gamer who wants to get to my great 3D game and stuff. So we'll actually be able to segment and drive the user interface down.
So you're going to reprogram the phone based upon what my use is.
Right. We do that today, right? I mean, you can download applications to your phone today that actually change the way the phone works.
Is there a step beyond that where the phone learns what I'm doing and adapts itself?
I mean, I suppose you can do those kinds of things. You always have to worry about surprising the user and changing the orders of buttons and things like that. So I think it's probably more likely that there'll be certain sets of things that people will want to do, because the other piece that you have to worry about is the carrier has to do customer service. And if things are so strangely modified that they aren't able to walk you through something when you have a problem, then it's going to cause a lot of trouble for them.
All right. When people look at laptops, they look at size issues that are based on the screen, and they look at issues like heat generation and battery life, and a lot of these things are becoming the same issues that you're looking at with a phone.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a huge issue.
Yeah. The one thing about well, 2 things about a laptop are it's got a keyboard. So until we have voice recognition, that keyboard is going to be there. When is that going to happen?
Voice recognition?
Yeah.
I mean, so there are some good voice
recognition. I ask
recognition,
everybody this question.
So the issue is that it works under limited circumstances right now. And,
so let me ask a better question.
Okay.
When will we have a 10,000 word, 99.9% success rate, continuous speech, untrained voice recognition?
For every single person in the world?
Well, let's just start with California. Let's do it for San Francisco, and then we'll move out.
I couldn't even give you
close?
an estimate. 10,000 words.
5,000 words?
Yeah,
I trade off words.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're probably getting close, but 99% accuracy is going to be exceedingly tough, and particularly when you have to deal with different accents and things like that. So the ones that work really well right now, as I'm sure you know, are the ones where you have some sort of constraint. And actually, one of the big things that's going on is multimodal user interfaces. So you have some text, and then you have the ability to talk to it, and it can give you prompts and give you feedback, give you choices of things when it doesn't exactly know what you said. And I think that's actually the way that we're going to solve the problem.
Okay. So I kind of see this war going on between laptops, that's why I'm talking, and phones, right? And as the more that Intel, AMD, these guys create, and create very powerful processing chips, and the smaller they get, there's no real reason to have a big, 8-pound, 7-pound. If there's a way to get to a screen somehow, you just put it in your pocket.
Right.
So I'm telling you,
That's going to happen.
So I can see you've thought about this already. So so I guess the question is, how do you see that horse race working out? Is that in the next 5 years, are we going to see a shift in people who would have bought a laptop starting to buy phones that are 2 gigahertz, kind of processor speed? And
yeah, you got people with BlackBerries already. How many people carry a BlackBerry and leave their laptop at home already? And that's a trend that's happening now. But then, as I look out into the future and we build, wireless LAN, high-speed wireless LAN into the phone, and the TV manufacturers, the display manufacturers build wireless LAN into the TV so that they can stream video to these things. The phone's eventually going to be able to stream video to a screen, and then you're going to get, away from that 2.5-inch screen on the phone.
Right.
And so that'll happen. We're building a processor, like we were talking about, 2 gigahertz processor that uses the 20th of the power consumption of an Intel processor, because it was very much optimized for a low power process and for, coming from the mindset of a phone. So once you have that kind of capability in the phone, you can, run almost anything. And then there's the memory issue, and memory is the component cost that's coming down the
faster than
faster than anything in the phone right now.
So you kind of see it, this is all very realistic. 5 years from now, we could actually have a lot of users who would have been PC users or laptop users, probably be phone users instead.
Well, so it's a form factor thing. If you want to carry around a screen and a keyboard, the question is, where's the processing going to be? Where's the memory going to be? Where's the intelligence? Where's all of your files? All those kinds of things. And so I think the possibility exists that some people will just carry around the phone. They'll hook on an ad hoc basis to a screen that's available. Other people are going to want to have that whole thing with
So I'm jumping to the conclusion that the largest expenditures that you guys are making in the next kind of 12 to 24-month period are in cutting that screen thing and cutting that keyboard thing.
Oh, I don't know. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the numbers, we're talking about 100 million laptops.
Yeah.
Versus what we did
Billion.
210 million just CDMA phones. 283 is our projection for this year. So the numbers are
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. If you look, let's just one more view of this. Technically, so we kind of touched on it. It's a 2 gigahertz. You think in 5 years?
Oh, it'll be in the next couple of years. We'll have it's 1 gigahertz with dual issue, so it's the equivalent to.
Okay. Yeah. So what's in 5 years?
It's just going to keep going. I think what we're going to have is better power consumption and things like that. You're talking about just on processor side. Yeah, it'll just be more pipelines and those kinds of things. We'll find ways to get the power down more and more. And also, as we go to the next process node and integrated circuit technology, we'll save power and all those kinds of things, get speed.
You see things like wet mesh networks and MIMO and...
Oh, yeah. On the radio side, we're going to do all those techniques. One of the best parts of getting all this processing capability is that all these fundamental digital communications techniques that used to be impossible to do in consumer electronics device, you'll be able to start to do. So we're doing interference cancellation and multiple input, and multiple output antennas and all sorts of crazy things will come onto the phone. And then, like we were saying originally, more and more radios are going to be there. So in addition to GPS and Bluetooth, you'll have some PAN, personal area network technology to maybe talk to medical sensors that you're carrying around, or talk to your watch, or these kinds of things. So there's just going to be tons of stuff that go in.
Which so we're kind of going into the OFDM, throwing all these words up.
Right. The alphabet soup.
Yeah. Ultra wideband.
UWB will be in there. OFDM's
so very high bandwidth, very low range, or relatively low range.
Yeah. So then the question is how wide of range will you have things at? And the question is then, how much can a carrier afford in terms of bandwidth to dedicate to any given user?
Right.
And those business models are the ones that are being worked out right now.
Those are the tough.
Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah.
It's not like giving a fiber to everybody.
Yeah.
This is a shared, resource.
It's the cable problem.
Yeah.
So let's go back for a minute to that little thing in your hand. When can we authenticate this? You and I talked to the phone. I think we have a mutual,
Yeah.
So we want this to happen tomorrow morning. And
Right.
How do we do it? How much is it going to cost? When are these folks going to start putting authentication into the phone? What kind of authentication do you think it's going to be?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a question of the authentication of you to the network somehow. And so I have a laptop now that's got the thumbprint reader on it, and that thing works pretty well, and it's reasonably small, and people have done those things.
And by reader, you mean the swipe, don't you?
Yeah,
The swipe.
I go like that and cross it. And so those things have been put in some phones at this point, and the question is there a business model to make that widespread? Will the operator be willing to spend the extra amount of money to have that put into a handset? Because if you think about the cell phone industry in particular, you have to, when you put a new feature in, you have to be able to convince the operator.
Would insurance companies pay for that? You know what I'm saying? It's not usable unless I swipe it, right?
Yeah, well, actually, the idea that we had was this thing where you might have lots of different devices, and you might want to be able to log in by putting your thumb on one or another. Mm-hmm. So if you're carrying around a laptop-looking phone versus the ultra-miniature phone, maybe you swipe your thumb on one. Once you have that capability in there, then you can do all sorts of interesting, and it will do financial transactions, we'll do healthcare stuff.
Right. But I think I just found a way to pay for this.
Okay, so
if I were an
tell me
insurer,
this one again.
right? If I'm an insurer, and people pay insurance for their cell phones because they constantly lose them.
Right.
What is it, $25 or something, Well, if I were an insurer, I'd charge $10 less if you had a swipe on your thing, because it's not going to be stolen, because it's not going to be useful if it's stolen. It's a piece of brick, right? It's just nothing. So
tell you what, you set up the insurance company. I'll come to you for the subsidy. How's that? Right. Saul, you looking? He's got money for you.
It might work. Okay, so we've paid for it. We've got the authentication on it, and I want to go to the wallet thing because this has some interesting problems in it. Bill Gates talked about this for 10 years or 15 years. You're interested in this, I think, this use.
Yeah.
I would kill to have this functionality. I hate wallets. I hate having the liability of all those credit cards that you have to call back if you lose them.
Right.
So, matter of fact, we had, just as an example, ID theft is the biggest problem right now in the United States. Right? We had somebody who had in her house, her laptop was stolen by one of the people who was painting the house, right? Out of her own bedroom or something. And it had some stuff on it that our company, we had to change all of our bank accounts, everybody had to change their credit cards. Huge pain in the ass. And I wonder, how many days, weeks, months it will be before we can go into this mode where I just want to go to Nordstrom or the local gas station or the Safeway store with my phone with that authentication stripe on it and say, here, swipe, right? It's a pay and go.
Yep.
The same reader or the same?
So they're doing that already in Japan. Docomo has launched this system called FiRe, and now all the other operators are using it too, and it's a near-field communications thing, so you swipe it. But one of the things that they found out is that building out the infrastructure of point-of-sale terminals takes a fairly long time.
Yep.
So what they did was they actually coupled it, and there's a company in the U.S. doing the same thing, coupled the phone with a card. So you can actually manage the account from the phone, but your output device is a card, and it's coupled through the network, which is...
So it's transitional.
Yeah, it's a transitional technology,
yeah.
But I agree. I mean, eventually, it'd be great if you just, swipe it, and you have your wallet of different cards, maybe your Starbucks card in there too, and all these kinds of things. And then you start thinking about the possibilities of multimedia to the phone, advertising to the phone, sending coupons to the phone, and you can actually track that all the way to the transaction where the person actually makes a purchase.
Yep, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a credit card you can advertise to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
And so here we are being exuberant about this, but in our conversation on the telephone, we hit a wall. And I thought, I've been thinking for years, those lucky guys in the telecom operator world who are going to suddenly become bankers.
Right.
Those lucky rich guys. But you say that they're totally uninterested in taking on the liability, or
it's mixed. I mean, they are certainly cautious about taking on the liability and having to do credit scoring for people who are making macro purchases.
Yeah.
I mean, micro payments, you already have that on phones. We do it for a lot of virtual things like phone calls, for example, as well as buying content and so forth. But what they'll end up doing is they'll either decide to do it themselves. Docomo bought a bank, for example. Or they'll work with a financial institution. So I think it'll happen. I just don't know how much
maybe
of it the
through
operators
alliances
want.
to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll depend on the operator, to tell you the truth. Some of them will feel more comfortable and other ones won't.
Well, Saul's here. We could ask you,
Are you buying a bank, Saul?
You going to buy a bank? No.
No.
But it does seem like there's an awful lot of money to be made here. I mean, if you are a phone operator, you look at those cards, and they're including Visa, MasterCard, and all those stores.
Yep.
And they're all making 4% or whatever it is, and you could make all that money.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know. I've actually looked through the economics. So there's money that goes off to the guy who put the point of sale device in the car. I mean, there's various slices of that revenue stream as you go down the value chain. So the question is, what percent is really left? It's kind of like digital music. What percent is really left after you pay off everybody else that's in the chain?
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to get another one or two, people into that value chain.
Yeah.
So
But you're probably starting with $1 trillion, so.
that's a good number.
All right, so we get this thing authenticated. It's a wallet. I want to talk a little bit about location-based services.
Right. So
you did a lot with that.
Yeah, we have that built into the
Yeah.
chipsets now.
Yeah, you guys bought, what's the company?
Snaptrack.
Snaptrack.
Yeah.
And when will it be that we've been hearing about this for so long, when will we actually see it's kind of normal that every phone would have GPS in it?
I would say every phone that you buy from Sprint or Verizon right now has GPS capability in it, but they've been using it for E911.
Yes.
So, you make a phone call, they can find you.
Yeah.
Just recently, they've started launching actually applications with it. So there's a pretty cool one out on Sprint right now where you take the phone with you when you go for a run, and it tracks all your times, tells you you went up and down. You can look at satellite
It tells you to
imagery,
speed up. And
everything. I mean, it's actually
Sprint!
So here's what I wanted. Here's my idea of synergy. So I have my music player in my phone, and it sees that I'm running slower, and it plays faster music for me. That's got to work.
Or it goes to something you really don't like, so then let's bring the Beatles back when you go. But yeah. We're in just 2 minutes or so, we're going to take some questions so people can. We have a mic right here if you want to start thinking about asking questions of Paul. So we've done all this stuff. I think it's all doable. It sounds to me like there aren't any major hurdles here. One application.
We have to find business models and services that the consumers really want for all these
That's
features.
right, exactly what I said. I think the LBS thing
Yeah.
is not, I mean, 911 security is important, but the part that I find attractive is the idea of where are my kids, where are my parents, where are my buddies. It's kind of a tribal deal. And I think that fits very well with the current generation, the young generation. They tend to move a lot in groups, and they want to know where the other group is, and how do you get together, and what are you doing, and show each other what they're doing. In Japan, they use their phones in parties to send pictures. So whatever you want to call that kind of interpersonal exchange, which we would probably, at our age, find invasive, they think is expressive, I think.
I mean, we're talking about kids who put their whole lives on the internet.
Yeah,
so.
MySpace stuff. Yeah, right, exactly. They're not worried about that the way we would be. So that seems to me to be a primary seller. That's a moneymaker, I think. Does that make sense?
There are friend finder kind of applications that are launching now, and also, I mean, another form of synergy. They have these applications now where you can take videos or pictures and post it to your blog with the geographic location, and then people actually come into a place and it notifies them that there's somebody in their groups left them a note about a place. So you come to the club and it can tell you, hey, don't go to this club. We all went to the club down the street. I mean, those kinds of things I think are going to be very
I got another one for you. From a long time ago, there was credit card based originally, but it would be now RFID or it'd be phone based. You're a part of the the Nordstrom Extra Spender Club, right? And you have personal shoppers who know who you are, and you can call them and say, send the blue shirt, and they send. You walk into the store, and the store knows you're there, right? Absolutely knows you're there.
Okay,
and
do you want that to happen, though? I don't know.
Well, that's up to you.
Yeah.
There are people who do want
you
that
have to
happen.
opt into those
Yeah,
kinds
you
of
have to
things.
turn it on.
Yeah.
But there are an awful lot of people, especially guys, I think.
Yeah.
You want to walk in there, they go, hello, Mr. Jacobs, your suit is ready for you. Would you step over here? You size it, and you're done. Bye.
Yep.
And that's good. That's not bad.
Yeah,
So,
I always thought it was funny when people said, you'll walk by a McDonald's and they'll beam a coupon to you, and I was always thinking, do I really want McDonald's to know where I am at all
No,
times?
I don't think that was good.
So actually, one of the things that we did with the GPS capabilities is actually done on the phone. The phone's the thing that knows where you are.
So it's local.
So you can make a decision, do you let it out or
Yeah,
not?
that's good. It's always got to be permission-based.
I mean,
I was in China recently and talking to a lot of students, and we were talking about location-based phones, right? And I said, so how many people are excited about the idea of your government knowing where you are 24/7? And they just laughed. It's like the worst possible idea you could have.
Oh, I thought they were going to say they already do.
Well, they probably do, but they were very sensitive about, no more, thank you.
Yeah.
And of course, this week we are too.
Yeah.
So do we have people who have questions for Paul Jacobs? If so, please step up to the microphone. And tell us who you are.
Bill Melton. You have in the past had great control over the CDMA world, being able to control with the patents and driving the technology. As you move forward and adopt more and more of the Wi-Fi world, how are you going to maintain that same kind of control?
So we actually participate in the 802.11 standards bodies, and a lot of the enhancements in 802.11 and the next generation is stuff that we developed. We have a working, multiple 100 megabit per second system, MIMO, and all that stuff. And it's interesting because the computer companies actually weren't all that excited about having Qualcomm be part of this, but we went to the consumer electronics companies and we talked about this idea of building systems that could ship the multimedia around the house. They wanted 2 HD streams to be able to go over the Wi-Fi, and our technology actually provided that. So it's just a question of who your partners are. People say that we have all this control over the CDMA process, but the standards body for CDMA is one company, one vote. Unlike the ones that happen elsewhere, in some places, for example, Europe, you get the number of votes in the standards body based on how much revenues you generate in Europe. Or in the IEEE, it's how many people actually show up for the meeting. So people send lots of people to go to these meetings. So at the end of the day, it's about getting an ecosystem together. I mean, people make these statements about us, but in fact, I would say we're one of the companies that partnered the most. We have 130 licensees now.
Hi, I'm Mark Prensky. One of the things that I'm very interested in helping people do is get phones used more in education. And one of the things that always occurred to me would be useful would be to have some kind of control where you could turn a phone into just a local radio, say for that classroom, and block out access to the outside world temporarily, or do that. How realistic is having that kind or similar kinds of controls built into phones?
I would say that that's probably not going to happen, mostly because the operator usually tries to put features into the phone that help them make money, and so if there's a feature that keeps them from doing it, they're probably not going to be that interested unless there was a real push for something like that.
Do you think the operators will not want to support education?
No, I didn't say that, but turning off the radio is not necessarily the same as supporting education. I mean, I think that there's a lot of actually efforts going on to try and do education over the phone. I mean, there's various applications for studying SATs and language and things like that. So those things will happen. And then as we penetrate more into the developing world, I think we'll use the phone for distance education more, and so those kinds of applications will happen.
Mark, you've been very had strong opinions about the post-broadband era, and I'm sort of looking for the post-mobile era in North America. I think it was Tom Standage who first pointed out that US and Canada were the only places in the world that had more PCs than cell phones, and that's still true. I just saw some data in January that pointed out that our two countries were the only ones that had more PCs than cell phones. And I think when that ratio shifts to having more cell phones than PCs, like all the rest of the world, excuse me, that'll make some difference. When do you think that might happen?
I mean, if you look at the numbers in terms of shipments worldwide of phones versus PCs, the numbers are substantially different.
But how about in North America?
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that there were more PCs than cell phones. It sort of surprises me, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, we're probably crossing over this year, I would guess, actually, as an installed base. So I think it's happening right now. I think it's happening this year. Yeah.
So is your point that when that happens in the United States, something different
Magic
will
happens.
I mean, what will happen is, as always, it'll start with the younger kids, and they'll get used to doing things mobily, and all of these kinds of synergies of the capabilities that are being put into the phone. We just had a carrier launch with a link to MySpace so that you can immediately take your pictures and post them directly up there. So kids are just going to be used to being able to take the stuff, take the internet with them wherever they are, use all those applications, and then if we're any good as an industry, we're going to figure out other things that'll be interesting that use combinations of these capabilities.
Saul made the point last night in his talk about demographics of the United States and the world, and how many old folks, we're all going to be old folks, and this one-click thing, and because one click. But also we have to recognize what you're saying, which is that things that are hard for us, certain multitasking things and many buttons and many screens, are going to be very, very straightforward looking to people who've been playing, war games on multiplayer games for 15 years.
Well, I mean, the QWERTY keyboard, for example. I mean, kids in Europe, supposedly, they can just text while they have their phone in their pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we all think it's a major pain to try and press all those buttons, but they think nothing of it.
That's not the issue. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Great pleasure.
Great.